A single dad volunteers at his daughter's school, expecting nothing more than glue, paper crafts, and a quiet afternoon. But when a little boy suddenly calls him by a name he buried years ago, an old promise, a hidden past, and a forgotten act of kindness begin to return. This is the story of how one school day changed two broken families forever. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Miles Calder had only agreed to volunteer because his daughter, Junie, had asked him with both hands wrapped around his coffee mug that morning. Please, Dad, other parents are coming. I don't want to be the only kid without someone. So he changed his work shirt, left the garage early, and walked into Briar Glen Elementary with a cardboard box of craft supplies balanced against his hip. He was not good at school events. He was better under the hood of a car, where broken things made sense. A cracked belt, a dead battery, a bad wire hiding behind clean metal. People were harder. Children were even harder because they noticed everything and asked the questions adults politely swallowed. Junie noticed his nervousness before anyone else did. She was 8, small for her age, with serious eyes and 2 missing front teeth she tried not to show when she smiled. You're holding the glue sticks like they're dangerous, she whispered. Miles looked down at his fist and realized he had crushed the plastic bag halfway shut. Professional habit, he said softly. You fix trucks, Dad, not glue. Glue can be unpredictable. Junie rolled her eyes, but she leaned into his side for half a second. That tiny touch was enough to steady him. The classroom smelled like construction paper, washable paint, and warm pencil shavings. Parents moved around the room in clean coats and office shoes. Miles stood out without trying. His boots still had faint dust on them. His hands were rough, the nails scrubbed, but permanently marked by oil. He had shaved, but not well enough to hide the tiredness along his jaw. Across the room, Miss Sloane Whitaker gave him a small nod. She was Junie's teacher, calm in a way that never felt fake. She wore a dark green cardigan, her hair pinned loosely at the back, and a silver whistle hanging from a blue lanyard. Miles had met her 3 times before. Every time, she seemed to see more than he said. Mr. Calder, she said, coming closer. Thank you for coming. Junie was proud all morning. Junie immediately looked at the floor. Miles cleared his throat. She threatened to stop speaking to me if I didn't. I did not, Junie said. You paused dramatically. That's different. Sloane smiled, and for a moment Miles forgot how uncomfortable he felt under fluorescent lights. Then a small boy at the far table dropped his paintbrush. The sound was nothing, a tiny plastic clatter. But Miles saw the boy's face change. The child was maybe 7, with brown curls, pale cheeks, and sleeves pulled over both hands. He stared at Miles as if the room had tilted beneath him. Miles looked behind himself, assuming someone else had walked in. No one had. The boy stood slowly. Sloane noticed at the same time. Her smile faded, not into fear, but into something careful. Leo, she said gently. It's okay. The boy did not look at her. He looked at Miles's jacket. Miles followed the child's gaze down to the faded navy work jacket he had grabbed from the hook by the door. The left cuff had been repaired with black thread after a toe chain tore it open last winter. Above the pocket was an old stitch patch from a repair shop he no longer worked for. Calder e Vale Auto, his own last name, and the last name of the man who had taught him everything before disappearing from his life. Leo's mouth trembled. Rowan, he whispered. The name hit Miles so hard he nearly dropped the paper cups. No one had called him that in 9 years. Not since he left the foster home, where people came and went, where names were sometimes changed for safety, and where he had learned to answer to whatever made adults less angry. Junie's fingers slipped into his. Dad, she whispered. Miles forced his voice low. Hey, buddy. My name is Miles. Leo's eyes filled. No, you came back. Sloane moved between them slowly, like she was stepping near broken glass. Leo, take a breath for me, she said. But Leo shook his head. He said he would come back when the red truck was fixed. Miles felt every sound in the room vanish. A red truck, a promise. A night rain hammered against the garage roof. A boy younger than Junie crying in the passenger seat while Miles, barely 19, tried to make him laugh with a flashlight under his chin. The memory was there, but incomplete. hidden behind years he had trained himself not to touch. Sloane looked at Miles, and for the first time, her calm expression cracked. "You know something," she said quietly. Miles stared at the little boy. "I don't know him," he said, but it sounded weak even to him. Leo reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a small metal toy truck. Its red paint was scratched almost silver on the roof. Miles's hand went cold, because on the side of that tiny truck, in black marker nearly rubbed away, was one word. Rowan. Miles did not touch the toy truck. He only stared at it, as if the small red thing had rolled out of a locked room inside his chest. Leo held it up with both hands. "You gave it to me," the boy whispered. Junie looked from Leo to Miles. Her face was tight with confusion, but she did not let go of his fingers. Sloane crouched beside Leo, lowering her voice until the rest of the classroom seemed to fade around them. "Leo, why don't we step into the reading corner for a minute?" Leo shook his head. "He'll leave." Miles swallowed. "I won't," he said before he knew he was going to speak. The promise made Sloane look up at him. There was caution in her eyes, but not judgment. That unsettled Miles more than suspicion would have. He was used to people deciding who he was from his clothes, his silence, his old record of missed appointments and late school payments. He was not used to being studied with patience. Sloane asked the classroom aide to take over the crafts. Then she guided Leo, Junie, and Miles into the small library room beside the class. It was quieter there. A rug shaped like a pond covered the floor. Paper birds hung from the ceiling. Sunlight pressed softly through blinds, striping the bookshelves. Leo sat on a beanbag with the truck in his lap. Junie sat beside Miles, still holding his hand. Sloane closed the door halfway, not enough to make the room feel sealed. Then she stood near the bookshelf, giving Leo space. Miles could hear his own breathing. "Leo," Sloane said gently, "can you tell us what you remember?" The boy rubbed the toy truck with his thumb. "My mom had a blue coat. We were in a garage. It smelled like tires. She was scared because the car wouldn't start. A man with this jacket fixed it." Miles looked down at his sleeve. Leo continued, slower now. "Mom said we couldn't stay, but the man gave me this truck so I wouldn't cry. He said his name was Rowan. He said when the red truck was fixed, he'd come back." Miles closed his eyes. The memory opened wider. He was 19, broke, angry, living above Calder and Vale Auto because he had nowhere else to go. His mentor, Graham Vale, had taken him in, given him work, and told him that a man could build a life one honest repair at a time. One rainy night, a young woman had pulled into the garage with a child asleep in the back seat. She had a bruise on her wrist. Miles had noticed it when she handed him the keys. He had asked nothing because Graham had taught him not to corner frightened people with questions. He fixed the car. Graham made tea. The little boy woke and cried. Miles handed him an old toy truck from the office shelf and said, "Keep it safe till I see you again." But the next morning, the woman and child were gone. 3 days later, Graham Vale disappeared too. Not dead, not missing officially, just gone after selling his half of the shop to cover debts Miles had not known existed. Miles had spent years believing everyone left because staying cost too much. His voice sounded rough when he finally spoke. "I remember the garage," he said. Leo's eyes lifted. "I remember your mom's blue coat. I remember fixing a car in the rain." He looked at the toy truck. "But I didn't know your name." Leo's small face crumpled with relief and hurt at once. "My name was Eli then," he said. Sloane grew still. Miles turned to her. "You knew." "I knew Leo had a different name before the adoption," she said carefully. "I did not know about you." "Adoption." Leo nodded. "My mom got sick. Then I lived with Aunt Marin. Then she couldn't keep me." Miles felt Junie press closer. Sloane's eyes softened toward the boy. "Leo's foster placement became permanent last year," she said. "His parents are good people, but some memories don't disappear just because life gets safer." Miles looked back at Leo, and a guilt he could not defend himself against settled in his ribs. "I'm sorry," he said. Leo frowned. "For what?" "For making a promise I didn't understand." The boy looked down. "You still came." The words nearly broke him. Junie leaned against Miles's arm. She had never heard much about his life before her. He had told her pieces, enough to explain why he hated slammed doors, Enough to explain why he always checked the locks twice. Not enough to explain why certain names felt like wounds. Sloane opened the door a little more. The sound of children laughing drifted in. "We should call Leo's parents," she said. "Not because anyone did anything wrong. Because they deserve to know he had a big moment today." Miles nodded. "I don't want trouble." "You are not trouble," Sloane said. He gave a short, bitter laugh before he could stop it. Sloane did not smile. "I mean it." Something in the way she said it made him look away first. They returned to the classroom after Leo calmed down. But the room had changed for Miles. Every bright drawing, every small chair, every parent standing with a paper cup of coffee felt like evidence of a life he had spent trying to earn from the outside. At the end of the event, Junie ran to hang her cardboard star on the display wall. Leo's adoptive mother arrived, a kind-faced woman named Tessa Vaughn, with worried eyes and a winter scarf twisted too tightly around her neck. Sloane explained quietly. Miles expected suspicion. He expected questions sharp enough to cut. Instead, Tessa looked at the red toy truck, then at Miles. "You were there that night?" she asked. "I think so." Tessa's eyes filled, but she held herself steady. "Leo talks about the garage when he has bad dreams. We never knew if it was real." Miles could not answer. Then Tessa said something that made the hallway tilt beneath him. There was a man who helped Leo's mother too. Older, gray beard. She wrote his name in one of her letters. Graham Valley. Miles stared at her. Tessa reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope. "She left this with Leo's records. We were told to give it to him when he was older. But maybe you should see the name on it." Miles looked down. The envelope was yellowed at the edges. Written across the front in Graham Vale's familiar block letters were 6 words. "For Rowan, when he stops running." Miles did not open the envelope in the hallway. His hand closed around it, but his feet would not move. Sloane noticed. "You don't have to read it here," she said. Tessa nodded gently. Leo's had enough for one day. Leo stood beside her, holding the red truck against his chest. He looked calmer now, but his eyes kept returning to Miles, as if afraid the man from his memory might vanish again. Miles crouched in front of him. "I'm not leaving without saying goodbye this time." Leo studied him carefully. "Promise." Miles almost flinched at the word. Then he nodded. "Promise." That evening, after Junie fell asleep with her school star on the nightstand, Miles sat at the kitchen table and opened Graham Vale's letter. The paper smelled faintly of dust and machine oil. "Rowan, if you're reading this, it means the past finally found you. I should have told you the truth before I left, but I was ashamed. The woman who came to the garage that night was named Celia Hart. She was running from a life that had become too heavy and too unsafe. I helped her because someone once helped me. You helped her too, even if you were too young to understand it. I left because I owed money to people I trusted too much. I sold my share so they wouldn't come after you. It was the wrong way to protect you. I know that now. That little boy remembered you because you were kind to him when his world was breaking. Don't punish yourself for not saving everyone. Sometimes one decent moment is enough to keep someone believing the world has good people in it. Stop running from your old name. It was never the damaged part of you." Miles read the last line 3 times. Then he covered his face with both hands. The next morning, he went to the school before the bell. Sloane was in the classroom, taping fresh paper to a bulletin board. She turned when she saw him. "Miles." He held up the letter. "I read it." She waited. "I spent years thinking people left because I wasn't worth staying for," he said. "Turns out some of them left because they were scared, broke, ashamed, human." Sloane's expression softened. "That doesn't make it hurt less." "No," he said, "but it makes it less poisonous." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sloane stepped closer and gently touched the repaired cuff of his jacket. "You came back today." Miles looked at her hand, then at her face. "I almost didn't, but you did." That quiet sentence held more warmth than praise. It did not make him feel heroic. It made him feel seen. A week later, the school held its family repair afternoon, an idea Junie proudly claimed was hers. Parents brought broken chairs, loose scooter wheels, cracked birdhouses, and wobbly classroom shelves. Miles set up a small tool station outside the gym. Leo arrived with Tessa, carrying the red truck. This time, he did not look frightened. "Can we fix it?" he asked. Miles smiled. We could try. Junie handed Leo a tiny screwdriver like she was passing over a sacred object. Sloane watched from the doorway, arms folded, her smile small and private. The truck could not be made new. Its paint was scratched, one will still lean slightly, and the roof kept the marks of years spent in a child's pocket. But it rolled. Leo pushed it across the table. It wobbled once, then kept going. He laughed softly, not loudly, not perfectly, just enough. Miles felt something inside him loosen. Later, as families packed up, Tessa thanked him. You gave him a piece of his story back, she said. Miles glanced at Leo, who was showing Junie how far the truck could roll. No, he said. He gave me one too. Sloane walked him to the parking lot after sunset. The air smelled of rain again, but this time it did not feel like a warning. Junie ran ahead, carrying a box of leftover glue sticks. Sloane stopped beside Miles's old pickup. You know, she said, the school always needs volunteers who understand broken things. Miles looked at her. Things? She smiled. Shelves. Bikes. Small hearts. He let out a quiet laugh. I'm better with shelves. I don't think that's true. The look between them lasted only a second too long, but neither of them hurried away from it. Miles opened his truck door, then paused. Would you maybe want coffee sometime? Not school coffee. Real coffee. Sloane's smile grew, gentle and unforced. I'd like that. Junie turned from the sidewalk. Dad, are we going or are you being weird? Miles sighed. Both. Sloane laughed, and for the first time in years, Miles did not feel like the sound belonged to another life. He drove home with Junie beside him, the repaired jacket on his shoulders, and Graham's letter folded carefully in the glove box. At the next red light, Junie looked at him. Dad, yeah. Was Rowan a bad name? Miles watched the light turn green. No, he said. Just an old one. Junie nodded, satisfied. Then she reached over and placed her small hand on his sleeve, right over the repaired cuff. Miles kept driving toward home, carrying both names now, and no longer afraid of either one.